the hip, it's terrible. And oftentimes the reason is just weakness. And we need these fast fibers because whenever you trip and you have this reflexive contraction, these fibers go online first. So if you don't have them anymore, you got massive problems, right? So another reason is in type 2 fibers, there is mitochondrial degeneration takes place as you grow older, much faster than others. And if you don't take care of that, that's aging. So you've got to train these type 2 fibers. And there are only two ways to train type 2 fibers. It's heavy or fast. So there's no third way. So whenever people try to do some sort of a super slow this or Pilates that, whatever, it's not going to do it. So you have to train heavy or you have to train fast if you want to stay young.
So are you completely against that kind of super slow training?
Not at all, but for totally different reasons. There is, obviously one reason is possibly somebody's injured, right?
Mm-hmm.
Another reason is to develop your type 1 endurance fibers, hypertrophy for these fibers. Why would you want to do that? Well, first of all, type 1 fibers, the downside of these fibers is they contract slower. So obviously that's a downside for some sports, for some activities. But they're also more efficient, which means it's plus for other sports, right? So another positive here, they already come pre-equipped with mitochondria. So mitochondria, that's where aerobic metabolism takes place. And by building your type 1 fibers, you automatically get more endurance in addition to muscle mass and strength too. So super slow work is good for that, but it has to be done correctly. The proper methods were developed by Russian professor Viktor Селуянов. And so he developed this method. I'm going to summarize it for you right now for your listeners. That's something you can easily do yourself. Well, easily is not the word. Simply. So the duration of a set is 30 to 60 seconds. You have to select the range of motion where there's no stacking. There's no support from your bones at all. So, for example, if you were to do a squat, you go down below parallel, but not to the point where you're sitting on your calves, and come up just a little above parallel and below again. So just that most unpleasant, the most painful area. If you're doing, let's say, push-ups for your chest, for example, you would almost brush the deck with your chest, come up about halfway, and come back down. And the speed is very slow, so there's no momentum at all. Now, doesn't sound like anything new, but here's what's new. Селуянов optimized the rest periods, and that's a big game changer. Normally, when people train in this manner, bodybuilders and others, they just want to get more burn possible. And by the way, the burn is awful. And in this particular case, you want to train close to failure. In this particular case, that's just a muscular training. That's not strength training per se. So they try to run from one set to the next. So they'll do that, let's say, that 30-second set, then they will just rest for 30 seconds and do it again, completely hammer themselves. The problem with that is, even though we do not know the exact mechanisms of muscle growth, we do know that some lactic acid is needed, but too much lactic acid is destructive. So what Селуянов did is he figured out is after this kind of set, you have to rest for 5 to 10 minutes. And that sounds, for people, it's a very hard mental thing to do. So here I am going for this massive burn, and I have to wait for 5 to 10 minutes. But it's very simple. You introduce another exercise in between. So train twice a week, 5 to 10 sets on the heavy day, eventually, once you build up to it. And about 1 to 3 sets on the light day. That's it.
Now, this is incorporating super slow techniques?
Yeah. And who would this be good for? Wrestlers. For wrestlers, it's spectacular.
Yeah.
Because even though there are explosive elements there as well, but it's also very much, there's that static element, static endurance. And one of my strong first certified instructors Roger from the UK, I had him follow this protocol before he and his crew rowed across the Atlantic. And he did much better after most people and was much happier, if you can be happier rowing across the Atlantic. So for rowing, for wrestling, for bodybuilding, for some people who cannot do anything else. So that's a good protocol.
So this is essentially a muscular endurance protocol.
You know what? It's both. Because the muscle's getting bigger,
Right.
and it will get stronger as well.
But it won't be faster. It's not something
No,
you would incorporate
no.
with a boxer.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, definitely not. Wrestler, yes. MMA, you just have to use your judgment there.
Right,
Maybe certain
depending
muscles.
upon your style.
Yeah.
Now, it's so interesting hearing this big, long break in between exercises because it makes sense. It makes sense you would want the muscles to be fully recovered because then they'd be able to do more work. But that's so counterintuitive to what everybody promotes. You go to a coach, you get a personal trainer or something like that. They just want to burn everybody out. That's all. Come on, let's go. Next exercise. Let's go.
Well, that's about feeling.
Yes.
That's about feeling, and that's about time management possibly.
And not
but there are
about
other
results.
ways. No. And there are other ways to save time. There are other ways of doing that. Depending on your circumstances, you can definitely find ways of doing that. But you can fill in the time with other things. Mm-hmm. Let's say you're doing this hypertrophy protocol, and by the way, that's been used extensively by Russian national judo and sambo teams. So you're doing some rows on the belt, the guy's holding you up. Then you walk around for a minute, you do the push-ups. Then you walk around, you do something else. So you're making good use of the time. You're just not revisiting the same exercise.
So instead of taking 10 minutes in between any workout at all, you